My name is Kamala Pather, and I am the head of school for the School of Education. So like I said, this is our very first webinar that we are hosting this afternoon for the School of Education, and it is around the newly accredited qualification that the School of Education has, which is the Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training Teaching. This particular qualification focuses on two core disciplinary areas, namely the STEM subject-related disciplinary areas and business and management. So you may be asking, what do we mean by STEM-related subject areas or the disciplinary areas? So STEM meaning science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So that's what this particular qualification focuses on. And then the second disciplinary area that you heard me make mention of is the business and management. And under that particular disciplinary area, we focus on economic management sciences, for example, business studies, accounting, economics, and tourism as well. Now, as this is a qualification that's specifically designed for students who are interested in becoming secondary school teachers, and the secondary school teachers, or rather the specialisation, is in senior phase, and so that's grades 7, 8, and 9, and then further education and training teaching, or what we know as FET, that's grades 10, 11, and 12. While we're focusing on those students who want to become secondary school teachers, what's important in this particular qualification is the focus areas. Like I said, the STEM and the business and management. Now, why is that important? Why is it different from other institutions that also have a B.Ed in senior phase and FET? Well, to begin with, we are focusing on STEM and business and management. And while I say that, if you look at some of the research in the field as it relates particularly to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, at the moment there is a huge gap in the country with some of our science, technology, engineering, and mathematics teachers. So what do I mean by that? We've seen that the research conducted in this area shows us that we have an aging population. So many of our teachers that are specialized in this area are between the ages of 50 and 60. There was also a recent publication stating that in the next 10 years, we may not have sufficient teachers in this particular area. So we saw here at Regenesys, we saw it as quite critical or quite important because we want to address the gap. And we want to address the gap in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, as well as business and management. We know that these areas are important, and they're important in growing the economy. Again, not to bore you with some of the statistics, but if we go to the research released by the World Bank, that research shows us that teachers in this particular area contribute to the economy by 0.5% of our GDP. So that's some of the statistics around why the need and why Regenesys Education particularly is addressing the gap in the STEM areas. Further to that, we spoke about our aging populace, but also South Africa requires teachers, or we require 24,000 teachers by the end of this year. So we need to assist in growing our teacher population as well. Some of the statistics around that shows that universities only produce, on average, 15,000 teachers per annum. So we're also falling short in that particular area as it relates to us growing the teacher population. And so this particular qualification at this moment in time in South Africa is quite key, or it's quite critical, as we also, again, addressing the gap. So we're addressing the gap in terms of our aging population. We're addressing the gap in terms of growing our teacher population, or allowing for teacher output. And at the same time, we're addressing the gap in terms of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, together also with business and management. So what can you do with a teacher qualification. So before I even go into what you can do with a BA teacher qualification, let's just talk about this particular qualification. It has 525 credits. It's over a 4-year period in terms of the qualification duration. The 525 credits means over the 4 years or cumulative, 525, exit level, NQF level 7. We are focusing on students or learners who are completing their grade 12 and perhaps are wanting to pursue a career or a qualification rather in teaching. But that doesn't mean that if you are mid-career or if you are, if you have a particular career and you want to pivot into teaching, that does not mean that you cannot do that. Of course you can, and we've made provisions for that. If you go onto our website or if you access our brochure, you'll also be able to see that there are particular admission criteria that is suitable for this particular qualification. So if you've just finished or if you just matriculated or you're planning, you're in grade 11 or rather grade 12 and you'll be matriculating at the end of this year, then our criteria for that is an NSC with a bachelor's pass, and you also need to have certain percentage requirements in English and mathematics. So please do access our brochure so that you can have more information in terms of the specific criteria. We also lean on RPL. So if you perhaps are a teacher assistant and you have another qualification, we'll have a look at that and we'll apply RPL, or we'll take you through the RPL process. So I spoke about this qualification, the duration, the cumulative credits, which is 525 credits. I also spoke about the exit level, so it's at NQF level 7. And then I also mentioned in terms of the admission criteria. What's most peculiar or particular rather, not peculiar, but or particular or interesting about this particular qualification is that there are electives that students choose. So if you want to become a mathematics major, and what you need to know is that if you want to become a mathematics major teaching in FET, for example, so grades 10, 11, and 12, then of course you need to meet those minimum admission criteria. And then you have an option to choose or to major in mathematics. And then at the same time, you can choose a second subject such as science or technology. If you want to major in science, for example, and again teaching in FET, grades 10, 11, and 12, then you choose your science as a major together with either a mathematics option or a technology option. Let's say that you want to major, for example, in business and management. So maybe you want to major in economics or in accounting, for example, or even in economic management sciences at senior phase. So again, you'll take economic management sciences at senior phase, you take mathematics with that, and then accounting at FET. So those are some of the election options that are available to you in this particular qualification. And again, it's all indicated on our website or even on the brochure. So if you go through the brochure at the website, then indeed you can have a look at that. So I spoke about the qualification. I mentioned very briefly, and not to bore you about the statistics, our aging populace, the number of teachers that South Africa needs to have by the end of 2025 to satisfy the teacher supply demand, and also with regards to how STEM teachers in particular are quite important in terms of growing the economy. And what I didn't mention was, why would you want to become a teacher? Why, other than, you want to contribute to the growing economy, you want to, science is your passion, or mathematics, or technology, or even business and management, why else would you actually want to become a teacher? So I'd like you for just a minute or so, pause and think about your schooling experience, particularly when you were in secondary school, and think about that particular teacher, first and foremost, that you were very afraid of. So it could have been, any teacher. Maybe it was indeed your physical science teacher, or your English teacher, or your mathematics teacher. And think around the reasons as to why were you afraid of that teacher. Could it be that that teacher was very strict? Maybe that teacher spoke a language that you weren't quite familiar with? Could it be that the grades that you obtained in that subject was problematic? Maybe the teacher didn't seem to be very friendly. So there are multiple reasons as to why you potentially didn't like that teacher. Now I want you for a moment or two pause and think about the subject that you enjoyed. What was it about that subject that you enjoyed? And more so, did you like the teacher? And research shows that 9 out of 10 times, for those learners who say they enjoyed a particular subject and providing the reasons of why they enjoyed that subject, most often it is because of the teacher. The teacher made the difference. The teacher actually supported them. The teacher brought humor into the classroom. The teacher also made much of the subject content in that particular subject very real, relevant, and meaningful. That's on the research side. And I wonder if I could pause for a minute and maybe go to the participants on the call today and ask for your experiences about the subject that you enjoyed the most, and more so, tell me about the teacher. So I'm just going to open it up to the participants online. I don't see any hands, but I'm going to ask Lebu. Lebu, can you perhaps assist? Are there any hands that are raised? Any participants who want to be part of, want to share their experiences? Still don't see any hands. Okay, nevertheless, we'll continue. So I'm sure that in the chat, you are posting, if you are using the chat, you're posting in terms of the question that I'd asked. What was it about that teacher that you particularly enjoyed, or why they made that subject fun? And so before I started off asking you to think about or imagine, let's go back to that question of why it is you want to become a teacher. And at the very core of becoming a teacher is exactly that you want to make a difference. When I started out in this particular profession, it was for me to make a difference. There were many teachers in my schooling career that actually made a significant impact on my learning, and that actually led me to wanting to pursue teaching and make the difference in terms of learning and teaching in learners' lives. And so at the core again of becoming a teacher is that you want to make a difference, that you are confident in terms of engaging with learners, engaging with parents, and so forth, and that you see yourself in the next 4 to 5 years making that level of impact. So for me, that's quite critical. I know that, when I speak to young people and I ask them, maybe they're in their second year or in their third year, and I often ask them, why did you start out or choose this particular qualification? Why not law or commerce and so forth? And many of them would say, actually it's a passion of engaging with learners. It's because, or somebody else would say to me, it's because there was a teacher who made a difference. There was a teacher who allowed me to believe in myself. There was a teacher who inspired me. There was a teacher who showed me that in as much as teaching is quite a difficult profession, in that you're dealing with varied and very many learners in your classroom, you're dealing with parents, And sometimes it may not be very easy, but it is most certainly rewarding. Very rarely do I come across a student, in their first, second, or even their third year say to me, well, actually, I chose teaching because it is financially rewarding. And that's also not to demotivate you, but it is, financial rewards are, indeed lucrative, and, we all want to be rewarded. We need to live and we want to be rewarded financially, but the rewards are supersede the financial incentives. So, for example, when I engage with students who then go on and become teachers in their first or second year of teaching, they often say, Ms. Pather, the rewards in terms of engaging with learners, or when I see them the next year, and they come back to me and they say, Miss or Sir, thank you so much. I really appreciated what you said, or I appreciated how you engaged with me, and so forth. So that's the reward right there. And it's a reward that is tangible, but at the same time, you cannot put a price to it. So those are some of the reasons, that I'd like you to consider when thinking about this particular qualification and pursuing the Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and FET, focusing on STEM as well as business and management, is that you want to make a difference, that you know that you can add to learners' belief in themselves, and that you have had teachers in your own personal life and in your schooling journey who actually had a great impact on how you went forward and how you believed in yourself. So that said, I spoke about the particular qualification. I mentioned some of the stats very briefly in terms of why it's so key or important, or why teaching at this moment in time is becoming quite important. Again, reminding you of the aging populace. Many of our science and mathematics teachers are between the age of 50 and 60, and so it's become quite important to the Department of Basic Education that we grow out our science and mathematics teacher population. And I also mentioned that by the end of 2025, South Africa needs to have 24,000 teachers in order to meet that teacher demand and supply. So I'm going to pause here for a minute and ask if there are any questions around the particular qualification. Lebo, I don't see any hands raised. Perhaps you can assist me, Lebo?
Yes, there is a hand up, but what they can do is that they can type into the chat box because they cannot talk. So they can type in the chat box and then you will respond.
Great, thanks. Thanks for that, Lebo. Okay, so if you have a question, please do go ahead and type your question in the chat box, and I'm happy to respond online or respond out loud to your question. Ibu, would you be able to assist me? I am looking at the chat box, but I don't see any questions in my chat box. Perhaps you have, maybe it's something on my side that I'm unable to see that.
They haven't typed yet, so I'm hoping they're still typing.
Great. Okay, I'm also just monitoring the chat box. So perhaps let's give you perhaps another minute or so for you to ask your question. So maybe you have a question around the particular qualification and how it's structured and so forth. And thereafter, if there aren't any questions, then we can conclude with this short information session. Okay, great. Lebo, I don't see any questions in the chat box. Are there any hands raised? Okay, there I see something.
Yeah, that's me. So there was one person that raised their hand, but I'm not sure if they don't want to type. Let's just give them a minute and see.
Okay, perhaps they'll reach out to one of our consultants. Please do, if you have a question, reach out to your consultant, to a sales consultant or a student advisor, and they would be more than happy to assist you with your question. We are ramping up in terms of our admissions, and we're going to start, or our first intake rather, is going to be in October. So on the 1st of October, we will have our first intake. So our first cohort of students will start in October, and then we'll have sessions again starting in February. So I'm quite excited about having our first cohort, and you'll find that when we start in October, we have quite a few series of engagements, both in contact and online, with our facilitators and myself as well. But I'd like to thank you for coming online and for your time. I do look forward to receiving some of your questions to our student advisors, who again would be very happy to answer all of your questions. And again, please do consider, if indeed you joined online, to think about this particular qualification and why the need now. Please do consider some of the excellent benefits in terms of becoming a qualified senior phase and FET teacher specializing in STEM and business and management. So I thank you for your time and for your attention, and I wish you well. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday afternoon, and looking forward to engaging with you again. And I'd like to also say a big thank you to Lebo, who has been supporting me this afternoon. Thank you and take care. Bye-bye.